Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded with you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. Now, the book of Matthew, it ends with these profound words from Jesus. Jesus' marching orders, his instructions to his disciples to go and to make more disciples, and then to teach them what Jesus had taught them. And then the great, big, beautiful reminder that Jesus is going to be with them and with us all the way to the end of the age, always to the end of time. You see, the book of Matthew, it was originally written for the early followers of Jesus who were converts from Judaism. It was written to help and guide the small group of people who wouldn't yet call themselves Christians, but just early Jesus followers, people that witnessed and experienced the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus, people who had left the synagogue in order to form this new group, this group that we now call the church. The book of Matthew was actually written in about 80 AD. And fun fact, we don't actually know the name of the author of the book of Matthew, but it's been attributed to maybe Matthew the disciple. We just assume that it was someone who had a deep understanding of the Jewish scriptures. And Matthew, one of Jesus's followers, would have been one of those people. The big question that the book of Matthew seems to ask is, what does God want from me? Over and over and over again in this book, we're reassured that God's love for us is not dependent upon what we do or how we act, but rather what Jesus did and how Jesus acted on our behalf. One of the best parts of the book of Matthew is actually how it starts, which most of us skip over if we've ever tried reading it before because it seems kind of confusing. It starts with the genealogy of Jesus. Now, this was typically done in a whole lot of other books in the Bible, but a lot of Hebrew scriptures. They want to show you sort of the way that person came to be. Usually, for most of us, we just look at it and it sounds like a bunch of names that don't really mean a whole lot to us. But there's a few things to note that are beautifully in this first part of the book of Matthew, in this genealogy of Jesus. First of all, it includes women. It includes women whose names are written there as part of the genealogy. Now, you won't find this in other genealogies at that time. So there's kind of an act of rebellion. Also, an act of inclusion, to include women at the same table as everyone else. There are 5 women in Jesus' family tree, and most of them would be seen as scandalous, especially in this first century. So the early readers, they're reading this, and they're reading some of these women's names, and they have their mind blown. These women, they all have kind of a sketchy history. The first one is Tamar. Now, Tamar became a widow twice, and that left her no place in society whatsoever. And so Tamar, she actually dresses up as a temple prostitute, and she lures her father-in-law in and becomes pregnant with twins from him. Now he can't kill her because he is the one who is the father. Then there's Rahab. She's in Jesus's family tree too, and she is a foreigner, but she's also a spy, and she runs a brothel. The next one mentioned is Ruth. She's a Moabite who came with her mother-in-law, Naomi, back. So she's a foreigner also. So she goes back to Bethlehem. She's this total, complete outsider. And then there's the most scandalous is Bathsheba, who they don't even name as Bathsheba in Jesus' genealogy. When you read it here today, you'll see that she is the wife of Uriah. She's the one who King David spied upon as she was bathing, and then he went and had her husband killed in battle so he could claim her as his wife. Oh my gosh, so scandalous that they even just mention her as the wife of Uriah. A big stain on King David's sort of reputation. Friends, this genealogy is written with this beautiful intention that the author shows us how God uses unlikely, flawed, outsider, human people to bring about God's plans for the world. How God would use all of these people, all the men and women in this account, all these beautifully messed up people in their imperfections to bring about God's great big plan for you and for me and for the whole world. So if God can do that, then just imagine what God can use you for. So here's our questions to sort of think about today. Who in your family tree would you maybe not include if you were to write a genealogy? And why is it significant that Matthew does include some unsavory characters when it comes to know who is responsible for bringing Jesus in the world? And number two, how does it feel that God uses imperfect families in order to accomplish God's plan? What hope is there for you in that? Thanks so much for joining us on our study for the book of Matthew.